Omegianatamaranda Sya Gyananjana Shalakaya. Chakshum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Rishabhanu Sutta Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchikapatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya eva chapatitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we wanted to speak about this comment, this title, the Bhakti formula, and this idea of living life like a pro. To begin the conversation or discussion, I would like to read something to you. And what I'm going to read to you is it's just a quote. It's a quote from a book on leadership. It's a quote that I sent recently, even today, but a few days ago, to a few people that I know. And it's a quote that very much resonates with me. It may also resonate with you because it very much resonates with various patterns that we are seeing in the world at this particular point in time, okay? So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to explore a few different points that start to speak and resonate from this particular quote. This is, as I said, it's from a book on leadership, which was written by my own spiritual master. The book is called Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness, volume number 1, and it was written by B.T. Swami. So I'll just read the quote and we'll go from here. Empathizing and sympathizing with others are not useless exercises. They are great ways to guide, instruct, and assist people, because one learns to have a deeper appreciation of who these individuals are, how they feel, and what their ultimate desires and needs are. In addition, empathy is essential for social and organizational stability. Anyone who has not learned to feel the pulse of other people is sitting on a time bomb that can explode when least expected. Okay. Now and this has been for a few months. So a friend and myself, we were reading and studying this literature on leadership. So as I said, it's been for a few months, even before the situation happened with the coronavirus, before the situation happened in America. And then as we were reading and discussing, and so many things came out in the societal dynamics, let's say. When I came to this quote, I was very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was very impacted. Because I could understand when I looked at this quote, some of the fundamental dynamics of human existence, some of the fundamental dynamics of the human situation. It helped me to understand what makes societies stable. It helped me to understand what makes an individual, community, or family stable. It helped me to understand what makes them unstable. And then, which was very interesting, it helped me to understand why these understandings, why these points are so fundamentally powerful. Okay. In what I read to you, it talked about empathizing and sympathizing. It talked about having a deeper appreciation of who people are, their desires and their needs. And then it linked the whole idea that empathy is essential for stability on an individual, societal, and organizational level. And that when we don't have that, things become unstable. So what I took from this quote, empathy, sympathy, appreciation, right? These characteristics, empathy, sympathy, appreciation, understanding people, relating to people, knowing where they are in their life, knowing what their aspirations are, knowing what people's needs are, fundamental human deep level needs. These things are absolutely essential qualities and characteristics. Now, what's said in this particular book is that they make things stable, which is very interesting for us. Okay? In our teachings of Krishna consciousness, we know that there are certain energies in existence. Sattvam rajas tama iti gune prakriti sambhavaha nirbadnantin mahabaho dehi dehinam avyayam. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the oldest treatises or oldest literatures on spirituality known to humankind, which deals with the human condition on many deep and profound levels. It also talks about 3 types of energy: the energy of goodness, the energy of passion, the energy of ignorance. And when I look at these qualities, empathizing, sympathizing, appreciation, understanding, needs, when I look at these, I immediately understand that all of these qualities are qualities that transmit the energy of goodness. We also know that ignorance leads to destruction. We know that passion, it becomes active in the beginning and frustrating in the end. But we know that goodness, right? We know that goodness helps things to be maintained. We know that goodness helps something to sustain. So we, at the present moment, exploring the human condition and exploring the challenges that we are facing in our global community at this time, we can see that there's been too much ignorance, too much passion, and there has been a lack of goodness, a lack of sympathy, a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding, a lack of appreciation, and a lack of knowing the science of nurturing the deep needs of humanity. A lack of nurturing the deep needs of humanity on an individual level, on a community or societal level. A lack of nurturing the deeper needs on a global level. And unfortunately, we haven't managed to nurture those needs on a human level, and we've even gone so far as to exploit, manipulate, mistreat the needs of the wider ecosystem. Whether we're talking about the planet or even the the other living entities, the animal kingdom, which coexist with us on this very earth. And because we've neglected to understand the science of nurturing needs, it has caused us to have so many negative repercussions. Those repercussions take place every day on an individual, a collective, or social level. Those individuals who do not know what they really need, who they really are, do not know how to therefore relate to the needs of others in a deep way, cause issues and rifts in community, cause issues and rifts in terms of parent-child dynamics, that's also behind the issues and the rifts that we see in a marriage, in a partnership. So that deep science of nurturing needs has been lost. Now that science of nurturing needs, even on the human level, relates to, like we said, the energy of goodness. Why does goodness have power? Why is it that goodness helps to sustain, helps to create a foundation for something that allows it to last? We know that goodness in the material world is a reflection of a higher energy. We know that goodness is a perverted reflection of a higher energy. So just like you have material goodness, it is a reflection of a superior energy, an energy that lasts forever. What is that energy that lasts forever? We call this Shuddha Sattva. And that energy of Shuddha Sattva is the energy of pure devotion. It is an energy of pure devotion. So when you see the goodness in this world and the amazing sustaining effects it has, it is simply a reflection of an even greater energy, which we call the Shuddha Sattva, which we call the spiritual energy. And that spiritual energy is the energy of devotion. It is the energy of Bhakti. That energy of Bhakti can enter into any part of creation. It can enter into any individual. And it has amazing power to nurture the very deepest needs of each and every one of us. We have three basic underlying needs. We're looking, all of us, for eternality, right? That is why we have a fear of death. We have a fear of passing away. We have a fear of disease, because we all have this anti-material longing to exist forever. We have a need for wisdom or knowledge. You look now, the internet, Google, newspapers, WhatsApp, text messages, social media, all of these things, and the literally millions or billions of pieces of information that are pumped out on these platforms again and again, and that are consumed consistently throughout the day by billions of people. It speaks to the constant hankering for knowledge, for understanding, to know, to understand what is really going on, what is truth, what is reality. But perhaps the strongest need, Anandamaya, the strongest need is that every single one of us are seeking pleasure. So we are pleasure seeking by nature. We run towards pleasure. We run away from pain. And these three needs in our ancient tradition of Krishna consciousness, in the Vedic literatures, they are explained as Sat, Chit, Ananda. And it is explained that these needs are essentially anti-material in their expression. So it's interesting. What does that mean? It means we have beings in the material world hankering for desires to be fulfilled, for needs to be fulfilled, which are by their very nature anti-material. So it's the original paradox. So what we can do when we, as living beings, recognize that we have desires that run beyond the limitations of this material world, then the next question is, how do we solve this issue? When we seek to solve this issue, we come across, by the good fortune of the Lord and his devotees, we come across the Bhakti tradition, the Bhakti practice, the Bhakti process. And just like in any process, in any endeavor, the more you understand it, the more you understand how it works, the more you can gain or derive the greatest satisfaction and the greatest blessing and benefit in using that process to heal, to become whole, and to become truly happy and fulfilled. Okay? So we wanted to give you the formula. 3 key ingredients for being successful on the path, on the practice of bhakti, which is the practice of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Okay. If you remember these 3 ingredients, I repeat, if you remember these 3 ingredients, and if you are loyal to these 3 ingredients, you will achieve the most intense, the most extraordinary, and the most inconceivable happiness. And that treasure is called prema, which literally means unadulterated love for Krishna. Not only will you achieve prema, but while achieving prema, you will also find that on a day-to-day basis, you wake up in love with everyone. Because when you love Krishna, that love is also reflected in your dealings with his family. And that literally means every living entity, because every person, every living being, including the plants and the animal kingdom, they are part of our same divine family. Okay. So we're going to give you these 3 points. We'll elaborate a little on those points. And then we'll open up for any questions that you may have. So on the poster, we gave this formula, P, R, and 0. And that word pro represents the 3 key ingredients that every single person at every single stage of the spiritual journey needs. Okay. The first letter, P stands for pure devotion. So every single one of us, in order to progress in Krishna consciousness, we need to expose ourselves to pure devotion. Okay? There is this understanding that you are what you associate with. Okay? So if we associate with pure devotion, we start to uncover our own pure devotion. Okay. How do we do this? There are carriers of pure devotion. And the special quality of these carriers of pure devotion is that they do not come from this material world. Carriers of pure devotion are literally manifestations of a spiritual world which is far beyond and far superior to this material universe. Okay? We want to name a few or three key carriers of pure devotion. One carrier of pure devotion is the scriptures, the Vedic literatures, and in particular, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavad Gita is also a carrier of pure devotion. So in these literatures, you're either hearing from the Lord himself, or you're hearing about the Lord from his pure devotee. It is said that the Srimad Bhagavatam is literally the literary incarnation of God. So when the Supreme Person manifests in the form of pure knowledge, that is called the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is one carrier of pure devotion. A second carrier of pure devotion is the pure devotee of the Lord. So when we read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, when we read the authorized Srimad Bhagavatam, not only are we associating with Krishna, but we are also associating with his pure devotees who are explaining to us Krishna's beauty, his opulences, his love. For us, our great fortune is that when we read books such as the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, we are associating with Krishna's pure representative in the modern age, Srila Prabhupada. Because he is also giving the commentary to those particular verses to help us to understand the true meaning of those verses. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is a carrier of pure devotion. Srila Prabhupada and his pure representatives, pure devotees, are a carrier of pure devotion. But the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is also a carrier, a manifestation of pure devotion. So we need to be exposed. Point number one is throughout your entire spiritual life, always look to see how you can maximize your exposure. How you can maximize your exposure to pure devotion. The more you expose yourself to pure devotion, the more you speed up your acceleration in becoming a pure lover of Krishna and a pure lover of every single living person, seeing them as part and parcel, as members of the same family of our same divine lover, Krishna. So P stands for pure devotion. But exposure is not enough. When we go to school, when people go to school, they are often exposed to education. Now the question is, does that mean that every person who goes to school, every person who's exposed to the education system becomes a genius or becomes an expert in that field of study? What do you think? I'd like you to put answers in the chat window. Everyone who goes to school, do they equally benefit from the teachers, from the books, from the education system? Yes or no? What do you think? Feel free to share in the chat window. When everyone goes to school, do they equally benefit from the education system?
No.
Okay, someone said no. Okay. So why not? What do they, and if we assume that there's the same quality of teaching, the same quality of education in that school is available to everyone, what determines why one student does better than another, even though they're all being exposed to the same quality? Okay, no, because not everyone is receptive, absolutely. So P stood for pure devotion, but the R, so we said P, R, and 0. The R stands for receptivity. So you can be exposed, but the question is, are you receptive? Okay. So along with exposure to pure devotion, the second quality that we want to inspire you with is the quality of being receptive. You may have great teachers, but if you're not receptive, you won't get the benefit of those teachers. You may have great teaching, great understanding, great wisdom at your fingertips. But if you're not receptive, if you don't respect the quality of what's being given, you will not make real progress. So pure devotion is there. Now the question becomes, how receptive am I to pure devotion? So for example, with the chanting of the holy names, Prabhupada, the key thing he emphasizes again and again is to chant in what way? Put it in the chat window. What does Prabhupada say? We have to chant in what way? In the chat window, what does Prabhupada say about the chanting? Exactly. He keeps emphasizing, chant attentively. That means that along with the exposure, right, the holy name is there, the presence of Krishna in the form of his most merciful holy name, that's manifested. But if we're not attentive, which is another way for saying receptive, we do not get the same benefit. Because these two things, exposure to pure devotion and receptivity to it, these two ingredients are the ultimate and classic ingredients that make up a powerful relationship. If I'm exposed to someone and I'm favorably receptive to them, the two things together build a relationship. My mentor used to say that man is in the religion business, or humans are in the religion business. But God, Krishna, he is in the relationship business. So what we're looking for, what we are yearning for, consciously and unconsciously, every single one of us, we're yearning for a divine relationship. We're yearning for a relationship that will fill our deepest longings to love, to give love, and to receive love in an unlimited and in an exciting and in an enthralling manner. Love literally sustains a person, and a lack of love will literally kill an individual. It will literally kill an individual. There have been studies which have found that when a child is born, if they do not get that tactile expression of love and connection with their parents, especially the mother, it will lead to all kinds of negative outcomes or ramifications. I'm going to ask everyone to be on mute, please. Thank you. As we said it before, on a societal level, on a social level, on a relationship level, on a family level, when there isn't that sense of feeling appreciated and valued for who one truly is, it leads to all kinds of instabilities and eventually destruction. There was a very interesting study, and this will bring us to our third point. There was a very interesting study by a person named Gottman, who was able to predict with 96% accuracy if a marriage will end in divorce. And what he did was very interesting. He observed couples who on the surface were being polite to one another, but who he could pick up all kinds of undercover boiling resentments and frustrations that they were not able to express. And when you do that, when you look at that kind of dynamic where people are repressing their real concerns, feelings, etc., when the individuals in that connection do not or have not matured or have not, for whatever reason, learned to express their genuine thoughts and feelings in a way that's healthy and constructive. When those feelings are being repressed, repression is symptomatic of the mode of ignorance. And when things are repressed again and again, they lead ultimately to an explosion. And that explosion, as we said, the mode of ignorance leads to destruction. So that explosion is the destruction of the relationship. Okay. The destruction of the relationship. Now, how does that get caused? This brings us to the O. The P stood for exposure to pure devotion. We said the R stands for being receptive to that exposure to pure devotion. So these two things are positives. Now we have the negative. So Gottman, these studies of couples, and he could predict, think about that as a prediction, 94% accuracy in predicting if a marriage will end in divorce. Why? Because that couple in communication, in interactions, they had done the O. So P is a positive, get as much exposure to pure devotion as you can. R is a positive, be as receptive to that exposure to pure devotion as you can. But the O is a negative. The O is the thing to avoid in your relationships with people generally. It is also the thing to avoid in your relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. The O stands for offenses. So, the Bhakti formula, if you understand these three things deeply, I actually can promise you, everything else you will ever read, everything else you will ever understand on your path of Bhakti is included in seed form in this formula of three. Pure devotion, contacting that pure devotion, being receptive to that contact with pure devotion, and avoiding making offenses. Where does this come from? What do we mean by making offenses? Every single day, people break the law of relationships. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yeya tamam prapadyante, tam tateva jamiyam maham, mamavat manivatate manusya pavasavashaha. Unfortunately, for many of us in our lives, we suffer from a disease called selfishness. Selfishness is literally anti-spiritual. Okay? Selfishness, self-centeredness is literally the anti spiritual ingredient. And selflessness in a spiritually oriented way is the spiritual ingredient, the most potent spiritual ingredient. Because if I'm selfless in a spiritual way, if I unpack that, it means I want to give. If I'm selfish, it means I want to take materially. I want to exploit. I want to take for my own benefit at the expense of another person. Now, by the way, that's different to self-care. But offenses happen when I take the artificial position of putting my own materialistic ego in the center. When I do that, I'm in real trouble. Because first I see it wrong, then I say it wrong, and then I can't even do service eventually. I see my position in the wrong way. I think I'm God. I think I'm the center of the universe. Everyone should do what I want. I don't really try to understand other people, their needs. Therefore, I do things which are actually offensive. And it starts by thinking that I can treat people however I want. I can mistreat people however I want, and there'll be no repercussions. It's very interesting. It is said that if one criticizes another person, right? We talk about criticism of devotees. If I criticize other devotees, they're sincerely trying to practice bhakti, but they don't do what I want. If I criticize devotees, if they don't retaliate, even if they do sometimes, I take on their sinful karma. Right? So whenever I criticize a devotee, the sinful karma of that person enters into my life. And the good karma of my previous activities goes to the person who I'm criticizing. You'll sometimes see there's a secret dynamic here. We sometimes read about people who are spiritual in any tradition, a religious person, a vicar, a priest, in any genuine God-conscious tradition, and then we hear later on that they do something incredibly sinful. And we think, how? They should have known better. I thought he was a priest. And we look at it and we may even know that person. We may thought, but they were genuinely well behaved. I saw them. They seemed to be so enthusiastic. And it's not that they weren't. It's not that they weren't pretending necessarily. They were authentic, but they made the mistake of starting to criticize sincere devotees of the Lord. And therefore, even though they had exposure to pure devotion in the past, even though they were receptive to pure devotion in the past, they made offenses. There's a very interesting term, and I want to share with you what we call the etymology, the meaning of this term. When we talk about offenses, the Sanskrit word, the ancient language in which our literatures are written, the Sanskrit word is aparada. We know in our tradition that God is not alone. There is Krishna, and there is Krishna's pleasure potency, who is incredibly, unlimitedly inconceivable and merciful. That pleasure potency of the Lord, the form who gives Krishna unlimited pleasure, her name is Radharani. And sometimes in the literature, she is called Radha. Aparada. Aparada means that thing which takes you away from Radharani. See, if we make offenses to devotees, we will find, and it will be in our material and spiritual life, it is like a person who has tied an anvil around their chain, who has tied a chain of an anvil around their ankle, and they're trying to run towards God. And they find that as they're trying to run towards God, as they're trying to come closer to Krishna, as they're trying to reach the spiritual world, it becomes harder and harder and harder. And eventually you'll see they can't even keep going. So these three things are powerful and potent formulas. Everything you will ever read in the Bhakti tradition is present in its seed form with these three letters, P, R, and zero. P.R.O, sorry. I say zero because if you engage in the O, your spiritual life, your bhakti will become literally zero. So we want to encourage you positively. Try to connect with those carriers of pure devotion, to chant the names of Krishna, read the spiritual literatures, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, associate with, read Prabhupada's books, hear Prabhupada's classes, listen to devotees, hear from the devotees, engage in the P. Second, R, engage in the receptivity, do it attentively. Let us try to be attentive to the devotees, to serve them. Let us be attentive when we are reading the spiritual literatures. Let us be attentive when we are serving the pure devotees. Let's be attentive when we're chanting the holy names of the Lord. And zero. Let us not make our spiritual life zero. Let us be attentive to avoid criticizing the devotees. Instead of criticizing the devotees, let us appreciate the devotees. Let us serve the devotees in a humble mood. And even when there are challenges and there are disagreements, let us always be respectful in trying to understand what is the lesson, what is Krishna trying to teach me through this situation? What can I do to grow? My own spiritual master, he gave 4 principles for community building. And one of them was that in any conflict, let me look at myself at fault first. Let me consider, what can I do? What did I do wrong? Now, what did I do wrong? What could I have done? What can I do now? In this world right now, the world population, the world humanity, they're begging for pure devotion. They're begging for pure examples. Give me 1 second, because I can see that it's getting a bit dark. I want to turn the lights on. In the world right now, literally humanity is begging for pure examples. Examples of people who understand what it means to love and who have a connection to a deep and unending supply of love, compassion, empathy, and wisdom. And those people, the world is begging for this deep bhakti formula and bhakti wisdom. We have to let it transform us, to run through us, to come through us to humanity at this time. And for those who can be used as an instrument, to be honest with you, you will be so intensely happy and inconceivably fulfilled. It will be literally, it will be of such an inconceivable nature. You will be so happy you cannot contain it. You will feel so loved and powerful you cannot contain it. You will feel so fortunate you cannot contain it. And your love, because it's connected to Krishna, will be unstoppable. So there is a need for that kind of spiritual warrior, spiritual general. But that means the formula: exposure to pure devotion, receptivity to pure devotion, and get yourself out of the center. Do not make offenses to Krishna and to his devotees. If we do this, we will be empowered to carry Krishna's own devotion to soothe the fire of suffering in humanity at this present moment in time and forevermore. Okay, so I'll stop there and we'll open up for questions.
If anyone has any questions, please do unmute yourself. You can ask the questions and then go back on mute.
Yes, it's open forum, so don't be shy.
If you are shy, there is a chat box as well.
Feel free to share your questions. And I mean it, we want to have a very open and honest conversation with you. I know that what I do for you is what's happening in my own life. How I serve you sincerely, deeply, is so amazing. So I was telling one devotee about this concept, and I gave him this title. I said, you can literally make your future by design. If you imbibe this Krishna conscious teaching in an atmosphere of love and sincerity, and you don't make offenses to other devotees, you'll be so happy. You'll be so healed. You'll be so holistic that it will make even the greatest material achievement feel like pain to you. Okay? So you've hit the jackpot in this lifetime. I'm going to be really honest with you. All of us, we've hit the jackpot already in this lifetime, but we often don't know what to do with it. And I really mean that. I've seen that. So please, let's have that dialogue, ask those questions, because if we do and explore this properly, it will give us greater enthusiasm to really act properly, to access pure devotion, to do it receptively, and to avoid making the foolish mistake of criticizing others, which will pollute our own lives and tear us away from the very ecstasy that we've been given access to. Questions, comments, over to you.
I have one.
Who's speaking?
It's Tonya.
Sonia, thank you for joining. Please ask your question.
Hiya. When you use the term devotees under the offences, is the assumption there that's every living human being, whether they know they're a devotee or not?
Yes.
Or is it people that
Please finish your point and I'll answer.
or is it people that are actually considering themselves to be devotees of Krishna, like consciously, willingly?
Very good question. So we should consider that we should not offend anyone. Now, let's be very clear. Offending someone is different from addressing an issue with a genuine intention for healing, to understand, and to also improve a situation. Just like a mother may have to address her child, okay? That's different. But if I do things with bad intention, if I do things from a selfish place, then I'm in trouble. Because by doing that to another person, I've just designed a future where that same behavior will be done to me. Okay, so so in our scriptures, it talks about offenses to living entities, that's there, but it has a special category, which is Vaishnava P.R.O, because it's even more damaging when it's done to those people who are trying to act upon the very ultimate goal of human existence, which is to rekindle our dormant love for Krishna. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's a very good reminder to me also. So thank you for reminding me. I appreciate it. Other questions, comments?
Hi, Krishna.
Sorry, go on. Could it be that anybody, even though they don't know it, because they're striving for their deep sense of happiness, we're all looking for some sort of happiness, right? Could it be that the devotional path, I mean, it's got to start somewhere, and if the testimony is small, so maybe that person who is committing crimes and is causing misery to other people and all the rest of it, even then, you know, unless you're going to do being useful in a way and trying to help them, but being critical of them, even in a gossipy sort of way, you know, without even them knowing about it, surely that is a kind of karmic response as well. So, because everyone's on the path, aren't they? Because it says in the literature that we will all get there one day, no matter how many lives we have to go through. So we're all kind of waiting for that kind of overdrive to kick in to actually see some sort of truth and move forward.
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say, or am I missing the point?
So first of all, what is your name, please, sir?
It's Will.
Will, thank you for your question. It's a very, very good point that you're bringing up. So I wanted to clarify, because it's very important. See, there's two things that happen in terms of karmic reaction. And this is something that many people don't know. One type of karmic reaction is that something externally is done to us that we've done to someone else. But, and this is where your point is very, very relevant. The second type of karmic reaction is that if I do something sinful, it generates a tendency within me to do the same sinful activity again and again. For example, if I engage in having intoxication, right? So, like drugs, if I take alcohol, all that kind of stuff, it generates more of a tendency to do it again. So people can become alcoholic that way. So it starts with just one thing. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna do that. It doesn't matter, I'm just doing it once. But it creates that tendency in my mind. So what that means is, if we get into unnecessary criticism of people, we become critical as a tendency. Okay? So it's very, very damaging. At the same time, and I think it's really important to give a very balanced and complete view. If, for example, you're a policeman and you see someone being attacked and you shout at the attacker, that's not considered criticism in the scriptures, because that's where you're doing something because it's your role. You're doing it with good intention in order to bring about a greater good. We also see that within our tradition. For example, a spiritual master may correct their student, right? But that correction of the student isn't a criticism. Why? Because the spiritual master has love for their student, and therefore that correction is ultimately for the well-being of the student. So a lot of this has to do with intention and position. So first of all, is it your responsibility to say something in this case? And then, if it is your responsibility, are you doing it with the intention to help the individual, or are you doing it with the wrong intention, in which case you will be held responsible? Does that clarify your point, Will?
Yeah, it does. It does. You kind of point the Arjuna having to face his uncles and fathers and having to kill them because that's his duty. And
moreover, to your point, Will, Krishna at one point tells Arjuna, he chastised him. Arjuna, you shouldn't lament like this. It's not the right thing. Arjuna, actually, it's your duty for the greater good of all concerned for you to fight in order to establish a higher truth and a better situation for all concerned.
Yeah. This isn't telling us to go out and kill all the bad people, though.
Absolutely. No, this is, and that's why I clarified it, right?
Yeah,
if someone's doing something wrong, we call the law. We don't think we're going to go and beat this person up. That's not the right response. You see? So,
just checking we know that's yeah.
So again, it's a very good point, because it helps us to really understand the essence. One is well-intentioned. We actually want what's best for everyone concerned. And second, what's my responsibility, right? If I'm the government, it's my responsibility to do certain things. If I'm not the government, and something happens, I address it with those who have the correct responsibility to actually act in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a good question. I heard there was someone else. There was a lady who was speaking, and so please, whoever that was, please feel free to ask your question.
Hare Krishna, it's Kalosha. Hare Krishna.
Kalosha, thank you for joining the call. It's great to hear from you as always.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for such a wonderful discourse. It's incredibly methodical and makes a lot of sense to someone like me, and that's very useful. So first of all, thank you for the class. I think for myself, especially on the point around receptivity, I find myself at times sitting in classes, and we have such amazing stories and narratives in scripture that are, as a first part, so incredibly captivating because they're beautiful stories. So even on a normal day, they get your attention. So you get the benefit of some exposure to something really amazing and something really out of this world. But on the receptivity side, sometimes we can take these lessons, more stories than lessons, let me put it that way. So it's about increasing the receptivity so that we don't just hear it for a good word or a good laugh and then carry on about our day. Because what I find is that sometimes the measure of hypocrisy gets quite large, because we've heard a very practical story that is very useful in terms of how we can change our behavior. But we haven't really then understood the essence of what we've heard. So how does one get better at not just hearing, but with hearing with intention, if I can say, and then having a way to measure almost a reduced hypocrisy, that you hear one thing and you think it sounds really great, and then the next minute, you just act according to a default position and not, based on the higher lesson or value that you've just heard. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And in one sense, Kalosha, you've answered your own question. The first thing is intent. So we have to hear with that intention. There's a story that my spiritual master would sometimes tell. So there was a guru and a disciple, they were together. And the disciple said to his spiritual master, "My dear guru, when will I become self-realized?" And, the guru didn't actually respond. And they kept walking. And, the disciple wondered, maybe Guru Maharaj is upset with me. And he kept asking again, "Guru Maharaj, I just want to understand, honestly, when will I become self-realized?" The guru just kept walking. At one point, as they were walking together, they were walking by a body of water. And then suddenly, completely out of the blue, the guru grabbed the disciple and jumped into the water and was holding the disciple underwater, right? And the disciple was completely shocked. But the guru let him come up for air, well before he was going to pass away, but it was the shock of it. And then the disciple was just completely taken aback as to what had happened. He's like, was my guru trying to kill me? Was he upset with me? I didn't understand what was going on. The spiritual master turned to his disciple and looked at him very gravely. And the guru said to his disciple, he said, when your head was being held underwater, what were you thinking? And the disciple said, all I could think about was coming up for air. And the spiritual master said to him, said, when your desire to become self-realized is as intense as your desire for air was when you were under the water, then you'll become self-realized. So Srila Prabhupada, he was asked a question. And the question that he was asked is, Prabhupada, why is it that Maya, so you can consider temptation, the material energy, materialism. He was asked, he said, they told him, they said, Prabhupada, why is it that Maya is so strong? And Prabhupada said a very interesting thing. He said, it's not that Maya is so strong, it's that our intention is so weak. So to answer your question, we will be transformed to the degree that Krishna sees that we really want it. And I've been meditating on this a lot over the years. You see, and this is, if you explore your own mentality and that of other devotees, you'll see something very interesting. Every single devotee wants Krishna. You see, that's why they're here. The devotees, they all want Krishna. That's good. Now here is where the subtlety lies. We want Krishna, but we want a whole range of other things as well. Okay? So what happens is it becomes a competitive thing. I want Krishna, but I want this as well. So we have this kind of split. We want Krishna, but I want this other thing as well. So the question isn't just, do you want Krishna? It's where is he in terms of that relationship with other things? Now, the beauty of Krishna consciousness is, if we go for Krishna, if we put Krishna first, while taking care of ourselves, it's not that by going for Krishna, we have to neglect ourselves. It's not like that at all. But if we do things in a holistic way, Krishna himself puts you first. You see? So it's a natural progression, because Krishna, what does he do? Prabhupada would often quote, Bhava Grahi Janardana. Prabhupada translates this, that Krishna responds to the essence of a devotee's service. So if deep down in our heart of hearts, we really want Krishna, then you know what the magical thing about Krishna consciousness is? He's always there watching you in your heart. He's always there listening to, what do you really want? You're saying you want me, but what do you really, or do you want something else instead? And to the extent that we really want him, he will arrange different circumstances, different situations, different association. He will, and many of you on the call, you'll have seen this. Many of us, we've seen that we had a question, we had an issue, we had something that we were going through in spiritual life, we needed an answer, and you came to a class and Krishna told you just what you needed to hear. Because he's alive. So we can't fool anyone. We can't fool Krishna, because he's in our heart. So if you continue, and it's not just what you want as a one-off, if you have a consistent desire to come closer to Krishna, he'll make the arrangement. And you know what's so amazing about Krishna? Two things. One is he'll facilitate you even more than you want him, because Krishna wants you to be spiritually happy and fulfilled even more than we want it ourselves. That's point number one. The second point, which I find very inspiring, to be honest with you, and Nayendra would often say that, if you can't cry for Krishna, if you can't really desire for Krishna, then you should cry that you can't cry. Right? So I know I don't want Krishna as much as I should, but I'm going to pray to Krishna, please allow me to develop a desire to want you. And you know what's amazing? He'll see she's honest, or he's honest. They don't want me so much, but they want to want me. He'll still respond even to your desire to desire him. This process of Krishna consciousness, you can't imagine how powerful it is. Because Krishna is all powerful, the process of Uttama Bhakti, the Bhakti process, it has also, and I mean this, it has unlimited power. The chanting of the holy names of Krishna, the reading of the scriptures of Krishna, the association of the devotees of Krishna, these things have extraordinary, inconceivable, and endless power. I really mean that. The only thing that cuts you off from their power is being not receptive or being offensive. That's the only thing that can unplug you from the original potency that is Bhakti Devi herself. Does that give you something to think about, Kalosha?
Yes, thank you very much. That was really helpful.
Thank you. So keep developing your desire. And if real desire is manifested in activity, by the way. If a mother says, I love my child, but okay, you don't feed the child, you don't listen to the child when they're upset, you neglect the child. So, but I love my child. Oh, but you know, my daughter, my son, oh, they're so important. Then you know that she's lying.
Yeah.
Right? So real desire manifests actually in service to Krishna. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
We have some questions in the chat box as well, so depending on those that want to ask.
Okay, so I'll go through the questions on the chat box. Let's start with the first one that I can see. How can we give negative feedback in a positive way? Very good question. You know, there's many different ways in which you can answer it. And I think this is the right way to answer it for everyone on this call, including for myself. When you see devotees behaving badly, you should also understand that their bad behavior indicates some instability and some lack of fulfillment in their own life. People who are deeply fulfilled and deeply happy do not go around behaving poorly. You see? So in one sense, on one level, we should feel sorry, some genuine sadness that this person is in such a poor state of consciousness that they're acting like this. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second, we should also always try to proactively build relationship with people. Don't wait till they do something wrong. Okay, we should proactively build relationship with people. And you know what, this, when you see someone behaving poorly, now this is a high level, but I'm going to tell you the honest truth. We should also think, what did I do wrong? Because poor behavior is often symptomatic of a person who is in such a poor state and in such a poor consciousness that they don't know how to reach out and say, you know what, I'm struggling. So therefore they're expressing their own negativity through negative behavior. In other words, they're destroying their own devotion. So we should feel sorry for them. We should try to proactively build relationship with them. We should most importantly set the right example. They should be able to see by our own behavior what happens when you behave properly. And they should be then able to understand how different their behavior is, and in that way understand how much they're damaging their own devotion. There's a seminar by His Holiness Jadwaita Swami, and the seminar is called Criticism in Contemporary Vaishnava Association. And he said something which, to be honest, it scared me. Because up until I heard that seminar, I had heard, and this is true, and this is in scripture, or in our tradition, let's say in our teachings, that when we make offenses, our spiritual credits, so when we do devotional service, we're building up our spiritual credits. I'd often heard it said that your spiritual credits become frozen. So it's like you're a millionaire, you've got millions of pounds in the bank, but because of an offense you've made, you can no longer withdraw money from the bank. So now you're going to live like a beggar, even though you've accrued millions, right? You're used to going on these exclusive holidays, business class, first class, living in your penthouse suite. But because you made offenses to the bank, they've locked your bank account. All the millions that you have available, you have no access to any of them. Okay, so that's what I'd heard. Now that's bad enough. But when I heard that seminar, Jadwaita Maharaj said, actually, in our tradition, in our teachings, it said that when you make offenses, it's not only that the credits become frozen, you can actually destroy the credits. You can destroy the credits forever. So it's not that they're frozen until some future time. Actually, they're completely destroyed. You begin from scratch, right? So all the hard work that you've put in for decades now goes to zero, right? So I don't know about you. I'll be honest. I don't know about you. I'm not going out like that, right? I'm not grinding for years in order to just destroy the very thing I put so much time and energy into building. You see? So these are the precursors. Now we come to and this is important, because if you don't have these right things in place, then you don't see, and I say this for myself. If I want to give you developmental feedback, I've got to earn your trust. Now you shouldn't think that. I should think that. I should think that I have to earn your trust to give you some developmental feedback. But then us, when we're on the receiving end, we should think that actually I want to hear through the devotees what Krishna is trying to tell me, because what I've seen in Krishna consciousness is Krishna is so kind and compassionate that when something is going wrong, he'll do this. He'll knock on the door. He'll send one devotee, Prabhu, or, Prabhu or Mataji, whoever. I think that this needs to be worked on. I don't listen. It's just you. Yeah, nonsense. You don't know what you're talking about. See, he sends someone else. Prabhu, Mataji, I think, maybe you could improve in this area, or this seems to be going a bit wrong, but I don't listen. And then after a while, I'll give you an example, right? And I'm not going to mention names, but maybe some of you will know. So we had a particular center in a particular country, and there was a particular person, and very senior, right? Actually, this person was initiated by the founder of our movement. He was initiated by the founder of our movement. And over the years, he acted in certain ways to devotees which weren't good. And then it came to a point where they wanted him to step back. He didn't want to listen. All of his peers, you need to step down, didn't want to listen. Wow. And you know what Krishna did? Krishna arranged a situation where he was forced to step down. I'll be honest, I could tell you what the situation was. I don't even want to tell you, because if I told you, I'd be embarrassed. I'll be embarrassed to tell you what actually happened. And that's not good. I'll be embarrassed. And so what happened was he was forced to step down because Krishna arranged an incident. And I was thinking, yeah. So, and what it taught me is when Krishna knocks at my door, I better listen. Because if I don't because it begins like a whisper and it ends like a slap, you know? So I realized I need to listen. Now, all of these things in place. Now, the question about negative feedback, I wouldn't say negative, I'd say developmental. That's the first thing. Second, I'd say, do I have the relationship to say this to this particular person, right? And it's relationship, it's also expertise, because because I want to say it so that they grow, because I care about them. I'm not their enemy. You and I, we don't have any enemies, because you know what? All of you are a mirror of my own life. What I do to you is going to happen to me. So I can't afford to have you as an enemy. I can't afford to make you an enemy, because if I make you my enemy, I've made myself my enemy, right? It's my job to love you. I really mean that. I'm very conscious of that. It's my job to love you as I love myself. It's my job to care for you as I care for myself. And therefore, it's not always your place to give that feedback. Do I have the relationship? Do I have the good intention? And then you try your best to say it nicely. And if you want to know how to say it, Krishna has given the formula. Austerities of speech mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Speak words which are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not unnecessarily disturbing to the minds of others. Right? We try our best. And then once you've tried your best, don't force them to change. Offer it. I was with my spiritual master. We were at the manor. One of my God family said, Guru Maharaj, how do you chastise a devotee when they do something wrong? I'll be honest with you. We were all like, oh my God, how would you ask Guru Maharaj that question? I looked at my spiritual master, I could see he was becoming angry, because that's not the right mood. The mood isn't, Guru Maharaj, help me to know how to chastise the devotees. I could see he was getting angry, but he controlled that. And you know what he said? He said, you don't even do that. What you do is you say to that person, Prabhu, from my perspective, this seems to be the issue. So you offer it as a gift, he said. Then he went on to explain how in Kali Yuga, everything diminishes, right? So the duration of life goes down. Intelligence goes down. He says in Kali Yuga, in this age, everything goes down. He said that there's one thing that increases in Kali Yuga. He said the only thing that increases in Kali Yuga is the false ego. That's what he said. And then he said something else, which was heavy, because we saw him getting angry, and I thought he was going to chastise that person. Then he looked at us, and we were all like, I'll be honest, I was scared, because I've seen if my guru gets angry, ooh, it's like a thunderstorm. I was scared. He looked at us and he said something which I never forget. He said, sometimes the person is so weak, the spiritual master has to build them up before they correct them. That's what he said. And I was scared, because I thought, maybe that's me. Maybe sometimes Krishna's like, he's so weak. I'm going to chastise him. He's doing something wrong. He's so weak. I'm trying to build him up. I'm trying to say it to him nicely. If he doesn't listen, he'll get it the hard way. You know, so you have to think about feedback. If you want to give feedback, what you should try and do first of all is see how to encourage a person build a relationship, but be careful. Oftentimes, even if it's just praying for the person, it has an impact. Okay? Do you love that person? Do you see them as your brother or sister? Do you understand that that how you're dealing with them is how you're going to be dealt with? I have a big thing in our community of devotees. I see so many times this issues going on. I'm thinking, why have you not shown this person that you love them? Why? And now suddenly, after ignoring this person all this time, now you think I'm gonna, and I'm not saying this to the person who asked the question, I'm just talking generally. Now you think I'm gonna chastise them. It's like, oh my God, but if someone who showed no love, no care, no empathy, no affection for you, if they suddenly came and chastised you, how would you take it? So we have to be better at this, right? Build the relationship, show the person I'm on your side. I don't want to say anything negative to you, because that's the other thing. People often don't want to take developmental feedback because they see that the person who's saying it, they're using it like a weapon. Even if it's true, I found something, I've got something on you now. Yes, I've heard something that you're not doing well. I've got something. Now I can stab you, and I can feel good about it because I can say it's true. But anyone who's even slightly intelligent can see, even if what you're saying is true, but your intention is wrong, it's still wrong. Those days are gone. We have to love our family members. It's a big problem that we have. So don't worry about the feedback so much. First of all, learn to love the devotees. You know what? If you love the devotees, I've seen this. If you love the devotees, they will ask you what they need to work on, right? Because a sincere devotee, and they are sincere, generally the devotees are sincere. A sincere devotee, they're not happy being imperfect. We're not happy being imperfect. We're not happy having faults and flaws. And if we're honest, we know we've got that, but we're scared to admit it to other people in case they're gonna misuse it, you know? So let's love the devotees, love them so much that they know that when you reluctantly have to point out that they need to work on something, they know that you're not saying it with any bad intention. You're only saying it because you love them and you want to see them happy. You want to see them successful. You want to see them content, and you don't care about anything else. You care about them. We have to create those kinds of communities. You know, we have to stop doing things in the wrong way. You know, so those are some considerations on that point. Okay, how do we stand up for truths without offending one? You should live the example. You should live the truth. Let them see by your example how following properly what it does to a person. Again, same point. Let them see that you love them. It's not that you're doing it with ulterior motive. You're not trying to get something. You're not trying to manipulate them. And also let them see that when you say something that they need to work on, it doesn't minimize them. You don't love them less because they make mistakes. You don't love them more because they achieve something. You love them because of who they are. I'll let you into a secret. I've seen that when the devotees are unconditionally loved, they fly. The devotees who are unconditionally loved, they're the most successful, they're the most spiritually realized, they're the most happy, they're the most consistent, they're the most emotionally stable. It's off the scale. Off the scale. And if you love people sincerely, you'll get the love back. It's amazing. It comes back to you. I don't understand how anyone cannot be loving if they understand our philosophy properly. Which tells me that we have, unfortunately, so many devotees who do not understand the essence of Krishna consciousness. Because Krishna will give to you much, much more just because of how you're treating members of his own family. He's so kind. He's so kind, and he's real. He's a real person. So please take that seriously. Okay, let's go on to another question. How do we create a habit to connect with devotees where we can connect regardless of their difference, or what can we do? Allowing us to prevent our mind to lead us to Vaishnava Parad, however not in a mechanical way and genuine. Very good question. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm going to share some reflections on this on Instagram actually. So if you have Instagram, or if you want to kind of find out more, we're going to share some reflections on this. And I'm going to put my Instagram name. And this is a shameless plug. I hope the organizers do not mind, and I mean that sincerely, but it's just because there's so much to share on this topic. But I'm going to give you a couple of considerations because I've been thinking about this a lot over the years. The first consideration is, and I mentioned this before from Prabhupada, Atmavan Manyate Jagat. There's a prison that we all have. And it's the prison of seeing the world from my own perspective. whether it's men seeing the world from their perspective and don't understand how women see it, or whether it's my kind of character and I don't see the world how other people see it. My upbringing, I don't see the world how other people see it. We need to let ourselves out of the prison. The first thing is I need to try and understand where someone else is coming from. Okay, so this is in answer to your question, Maya. Point number one, seek first to understand. Okay, let me try, and you can ask questions, you can observe. So try to understand where people are coming from. That's number one. Second, in terms of the differences, don't disregard the differences. Appreciate the differences. I was reading about this point in Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness, Part 1. I was reading about this just yesterday. So it's very fresh in my mind. And that is, having understood and appreciated the differences, look to see where can we connect with common ground. Okay, where can I connect with common ground? Because everyone, we have universal things in common. And connect on those things that are common ground where they're inspired and you're inspired. Okay, that's the way to do it. Now, there is one other factor. You should build relationships based upon reality. So people who are as mature as you are, they're your friends. People who are, let's say, junior in their devotion and in their maturity, you deal with them in a way that you will deal with a loving junior. People who are more advanced than you are, you deal with them in the way that you will deal in your respectful way towards your seniors. If you do these three things, and this is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Narada Muni, then you will find that things will flourish for you. It really is like that. And it's also in that place in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says the difficulty is that when we see people who are junior to us, we often mistreat them. When we see people who are our peers, we become competitive. And when we see people who are senior to us, we actually envy them. And that's the cause of so many tribulations in our life, you know? So that's how you do it. So there's a science. I'm going to speak about this in a seminar I'm giving for the School of Bhakti on spiritual relationships. If you're interested in getting into it in detail, we'll speak about it then. But the key point is, when people are your equals, right? They're equally advanced in devotion, and usually they're equal in terms of their psychology, even their human maturity. They're your peers. Okay, you treat them like friends, equal. Okay, when people are more advanced, they're your seniors. Okay, so you get guidance from them, and you have that respectful mood, so you can hear and take guidance. When people are less advanced, you give them mercy, compassion, encouragement as a junior. So it's not that everything is artificially equal. You deal with people based upon the reality. Okay, and where possible, you connect with people according to the common ground. Okay, the other thing to point out here is don't fall into the mistake of thinking that you'll be close friends with everyone, because you don't have the time and energy to build deep close friendships with every single person. There'll be some people who naturally your chemistry and their chemistry connect more, and those people are the people that you'll be closer to. Okay, you should be loving and friendly to everyone, but you only have a few people who you're close friends with. Now, what happens in the modern world, because the modern world is under the modes of passion and ignorance, they fall for this Facebook caricature, where you go on Facebook and everyone's got 1 million friends and they're smiling and laughing, but that's a photo, that's not real life. And because people have this artificial expectation, when they don't meet it, which no one does, then they become depressed as if there's something wrong with them and there's something wrong with their life. No, it's your expectation that's wrong. Okay, so there's something to think about in that regard. Okay, let me go on to this other question. Okay, last one, Des Banger. So is there a guidance book on offenses and how to create the pure devotion to fix these specific offenses, or to offense? Yeah, so actually, to be honest, I've not seen any guidebook on it except this one, and I'll write down the title. Radhasunya by B.T. Swami. Okay, this book let's see. And apologies if it seems like it's a plug by me for my guru, but this is the only book I've seen which is distinctly like a thorough understanding of offenses and how it works in contemporary devotee association. And I'll just put down available on. Okay, so I put it in the chat window. So what happened was earlier this year, we managed to get all of, or most of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's book, I think all of them actually, are now available on Amazon. And that book was the last book that he released, or one of the last books. I think the last one was A Beggar 4, but it was all around offenses. And so it's called Radha Sunya, which means missing mercy. Okay, so if you want to get into how to have proper dealings with devotees, being able to be honest and open with devotees, but without making offenses to devotees, he goes into great detail into how that can be done in a healthy and balanced way in that book. In fact, the entire book is just on that subject. Okay, and then I'll look at this question. Is it okay to avoid negatives and hypocrites to keep yourself peaceful? Yeah, it is. It is okay. You know, but you should also consider that you can pray for those people, right? So no one is a complete hypocrite, okay? Sometimes people have, so when we talk about having good association, there's a fine point to this, and that is associate with the good in other people as well. So so ideally you go for the best association you can, okay? But when you're around people, they'll have some good side and they'll have something which may not be so good. So try to connect with that which is the best in them, and try to avoid or disconnect from that which is not so healthy in that person. All the while helping the person to encouraging where you can. And sometimes encouragement may be a prayer, it may be encouraging at a distance, but all the while trying to bring out the best for that person based upon what you can do while you're moving forward on your own journey to Krishna, okay? And even if you're not associating with them, but you're praying for their well-being, that is still powerful and significant, because Krishna will see that and he'll reciprocate as well. Okay. Is that okay? I'm going to ask the organizers, is that okay in terms of what we shared?
Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu, that was absolutely excellent. We're really,
I wanted to say thank you to the organizers and also to those who asked questions, because there are no accidents. This is also teaching me more that I can reflect on in order to be a better servant. So thank you. Please, over to you.
So thank you very, very much, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. I'm sure everyone here is echoing the same sentiment. We're really, really grateful to have had your association. And what you've shared with us today is really, really powerful. Something to contemplate about, reflect on, and also apply within our lives. So thank you so much. We do hope we can have you come and get your association in due course again. Please do keep us in your prayers and pray for everyone over here that we can become Bhakti practitioners like a pro and apply what you've given us effectively in our lives.
We'll pray for each other. Thank you. We'll pray for each other. I really mean what I said. The process is so, you've landed, you've hit the jackpot in this lifetime. If we do this properly, the experiences that you have will be incredible. You'll be so happy you can't even imagine it. But we just have to do it properly. Exposure to pure devotion, being receptive, and avoid offenses. Don't destroy your own spiritual credits. Then Krishna will give you everything. He'll give you more than you can even ask for. It's so powerful. Okay.
Thank you, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu.